Hi, teachers. I'm Walter from EOT in Brazil. This is Bruno, my partner. We're here today
everyone.
to talk a little bit. Yes, we're going to talk a little bit more about planning, right? How to plan lessons. In this session, we are going to be talking, it's actually the second part of the lesson on framework. So we'll discuss a little bit more of that. As usual, please leave us a comment, click on like right down below, and share the video with your friends if you can. We appreciate it. All right?
Please
Roda a
do.
vinheta.
Roda a vinheta. So welcome back, everyone. So as Walter was saying, today we're going to focus on two other frameworks. You're actually getting 3 for the price of 2 because one of them works for 2 skills. So in the last session, we talked about PPP and TTT, which are great frameworks for, we'll say, general development or a development more focused on grammar and vocabulary. Today, the first framework we want to discuss is very useful for lessons in which you're focusing on the development of listening or reading. So I think we should get this on the board, Walter. The first framework, very simple, is pre, while, and post activities.
Bruno, you have to enable that for me.
I have to allow you to share, of course.
Yes.
Give it a shot.
And here we go. All right. Let's go down below.
So pre, while, and post.
We have we could say pre-listening, but you could say pre-reading. You have while listening or reading. And then you have post listening and reading. There we go.
I usually say that this is a simple framework because it's exactly what you see. You're going to be planning 3 moments for this lesson. A moment that comes before the listening or the reading, a moment that is the listening or reading, and a moment for the post, a moment after the listening or reading. For the pre-phase, what we want to is to engage students in the topic of the lesson, to contextualize what we're going to discuss in this lesson, and activate students' prior knowledge on this topic. So imagine you're having a text about, I don't know, it's an interview with an astronaut who lived a couple months in the International Space Station, right? So in the pre-listening, if it's an audio or a video, in this case, listening and watching for videos, I think works the same. And reading, if it's a text, maybe an interview, a written interview with the astronaut, you want to get students in the topic of astronauts living in the International Space Station. So maybe show students a picture of the inside of a space station and ask them, how would you feel in this place, in this situation? What do you think astronauts have the hardest time doing? Would you like to live in a space station? What would you ask an astronaut living in a space station, right? And then you're directing to the interview, right? So you can show pictures, you can ask questions, you can show a very short video related to the topic, because the idea here is getting students to activate what they already know about the topic and get them interested, right?
Yes.
Because we know that new knowledge will always connect with previous knowledge. So we need to have this activated before we get started. Right, Walter?
Yes, I am
Yeah.
writing, but I'm just following up with
Mhm.
everything you're saying. So remember that everything in a lesson has a rationale, a reason behind it. The reason behind pre-listening is activating students' previous knowledge of that task. Every
Mhm.
time, like, let's say we are gonna talk about, okay, we're gonna talk about space station. So
Mhm.
as soon as you say the word space, your brain starts, looking for words in there and connections, such as words like ship or stars or anything that is involved with space. And then you are doing that. You're activating their previous knowledge. We have something called schema or schemata, if you prefer, uh, like that.
Yeah, I think it's
No, it's
CH, isn't it?
yeah, it's yes,
Schema.
schem,
Yeah.
schem, schemata
Schemata.
or schema.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
schemata is the plural of schema, if I'm not wrong, right?
Hmm. I
Yeah.
guess so.
Uh, I'm not sure it's a ch now. Is
Schemata.
it?
I think it
Schemata. Is
is.
it a ch or is it a k? I really got confused there.
Yeah, I think it's CH.
I think
But
it's
carry
ch.
on. I'll check.
Yeah. Yes. And then as you move on, we have the you activate their schemata, you have them talk about it. They will be speaking about the topic before they ever listen to the audio or they read the text. Then you move
Hmm.
on. Now you have while listening. However, while listening, even though you see it as one stage, you can have multiple stages as while listening. Why you have that? Remember that we don't teach a skill, we develop the skill. And that happens through the development of sub skills. And the sub skills that we are going to talk about, even though you might use them to talk about listening and reading, they are actually not the same. Bruno, I'm just gonna let you go, and then I'll write them, and then I'll complement.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
You want to go
By
through
the
with it?
way, schemata is CH. We're correct.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
So as Walter was saying, we developed these sub skills, these strategies to decode listening text or reading texts, right? The most common ones that we often address in a lesson are the listening or reading for gist, which is a synonym for general comprehension, right? So it's this kind of, it's not superficial, but in comparison to the others, it might be. So bear with me for a moment. It's a comprehension that it's more on the surface level of the text. So you know what the text is about, you know the main ideas. You can summarize the main points with a peer, right? So it's reading that is done quickly and superficially. Yeah.
Yes.
Or listening.
A very common one for those is is when you get students involved in something like prediction. So you show them a picture from that is about the text. When I say text, could be written or could be an audio track, and you ask them a few like questions, or you show them the title of the text, ask them a few questions, and they will predict what's going to be in the text. There is something very important about the word gist, as Bruno was saying. Uh, it can't be about one part of the text.
Hmm.
It needs to be about the text as a whole.
Hmm.
You need to confirm that they because they are not looking for words and trying to understand words. They're trying to understand the whole idea.
Hmm. The
Right,
big
so
picture.
it's like this, like I show you I don't know, an episode of Friends. um could you like, do you understand what like maybe you don't understand, the student doesn't understand specific parts of that, and therefore they won't be laughing, but they can still get what the story is about because they understand it as a whole, right? Shall we
Definitely.
move on?
Yeah. And then a second task could be, so you read or you listen for the general idea, and then you read or listen for more detail, for more in-depth comprehension, right? So now you'll be reading more intensively. So, for example, in my third lesson for Delta, I planned a reading class in which the first reading moment, reading for gist, students had to read the text and answer 3 questions. Why did I write this text? Who did I write this text to? And what's the main objective of the text? Right, which was an email to my wife who was visiting my family's hometown and giving her some directions around the city. So this is the gist, right, of the text. This, what I just told you, is the gist of the text, right? It's the main idea. You don't have all the details there, but this is...
And mind you, you can even use the word gist, right? Like, oh yeah, that was the gist. Yeah, like that was the
gist
main
of it.
idea, the whole idea of it. Yes.
Yeah.
A very
and
common
then,
yeah, please go on. Please go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the activity that was aimed at reading for detail, more intensive reading, was students had to read the text and use the information in the text to complete a map that came together with the text. So it's much more intensive reading, right? So now understanding the general idea of the text does not suffice. You have to understand really small details and understand that, oh, this is next to and this is across from the other place, and then draw on the map, right?
Very common tasks for this type of reading are true or false, for example.
But don't.
Okay.
They're just
I thought,
horrible.
yeah, I thought you were not gonna mention,
but they are common. They are common. So
yes, but you were not gonna
it's
mention
worth...
the difference between specific and detail in this video, I believe, right?
I think we can talk about specific information. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, okay.
So carry on. True or false?
Yeah,
let's
okay.
criticize true or false.
We have true or false. As we know, Bruno hates that.
Yes.
And we can have multiple choice. They will listen and choose. You give them options and they have to choose something. We can have even gap fills, especially if it's listening, but you can do it with reading. One thing, the thing that they will read or listen is not exactly the same that is written down in the exercise that they will have to get to fill in the gaps. So basically, they have to listen, and there's somebody saying something like, there were 10 people inside the spaceship when it exploded. And then the sentence would be, that's a horrible sentence, by the way.
Right?
But it would be like, yeah, it's like, the number of people or casualties in the explosion was, and then the number of people that was mentioned, that was 10. But you see that the sentence is not the same. So it involves very complex understanding of things and even multitasking, even though that doesn't really exist anyway. But yeah, so we got it. We got it.
Yeah, I think the idea here, and this is my suggestion, true or false multiple choice gap filling, as Walter was saying, is that they're all activities focused on helping students work with these, with reading for detail, right? Reading in depth, more intensively. But do get creative here. You don't have to, because usually the course books, they will bring you this kind of activity. And for example, true or false, I think it's a horrible exercise because it's 50% chance that the student will get it right, even though he had never read the text, right? So in terms of assessment, this is a, a bad assessment choice, right? You cannot have students scoring
Mhm.
50% if they haven't read the text, right?
But if
Um,
you ask them to correct the false ones,
it's a bit better,
it's a bit
indeed.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would just try to get and this I think it's related to my style of teaching or preference.
Mhm.
We can discuss this later, but
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Mhm.
I think uh, the more you try to make your text, your tasks, your activities real lifelike, the more motivating and engaging they will be,
Mhm.
right? So true or false, multiple choice, gap filling, these are not real life tasks.
Mhm.
But
Open-ended
perhaps,
questions.
oh, they're
Open-ended
nice.
questions. Yeah,
Yes.
open-ended
And
questions are kind of more
yeah,
difficult,
they
probably.
are. They are.
And
And they really carry on, carry on.
we will have to draw the line between specifics and details,
Mhm.
uh, because they would probably be about details being more complex than specific reading, right? Uh, specific tasks are more about getting the number, getting the name, right? Simple. They're more simplistic, and therefore true or false is more useful for specific than it is for details, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But carry on,
Yeah.
please.
um and then again, do get creative here, get students to draw a mind map on on the, so for example, imagine the reading for gist, you get them to fish the three main ideas of the text, and then they do it, and then for reading for detail they have to build a mind map using these three main ideas, right? So it's much more real life like, so students are building a visual summary of the text, so it's much more
Uh,
engaging and
I'll
um,
give you one example how important that is, which is like understanding the main idea of, because some texts have more than one. Let's say you are a candidate for a C2 exam, and then you have the writing and the essay for CPE. You have to, because it's a summary essay, you have to identify three key points in a text and then write your text with your opinion, but summarizing three key points of that little text. So it can be very useful to teach your students how
mhm,
to do that. Also for exam purposes,
mhm,
exam taking
mhm.
purposes.
Yeah, it helps them study for life, right? Building
Yes.
mind maps. Yeah. And then post listening, post reading is the moment that you will transition from a receptive skill to a productive skill, right? So students are going to use the content of the listening reading in a productive activity. It is very common to transition from reading to writing and from listening to speaking, right? It's very natural. It's very, I think it's very intuitive to do so, right? But feel
What
free
you
to
said,
transition.
what you just said is so Delta like.
Yeah, it
There's a
is.
task in Delta that you really have, like, this is something very common there. It's like, because it is useful to have students go from receptive to
Uh-huh.
productive skills. But I mean, it's something so, expected, isn't it?
Hmm.
That,
Hmm.
like, it- just ask yourself, do you want your students to leave the classroom after a reading or a listening? You probably don't, because their energy is down,
Hmm.
right? That's not going to be like when they go home, they should be speaking. The energy should be up there
Hmm.
and they should be, happy,
Hmm.
feeling good about something. So you end the lesson in a productive way in which they
Hmm.
are communicating. And when I say that, I really want to emphasize speaking. But yeah, it could be writing.
It could be writing, yeah. And the thing is, you're giving students something to read or something to watch or something to listen to. You want to allow them the opportunity to react to what they've read, to what they watched, or to what they listened to, right? So you want their opinion, you want their point of view, you want their reaction to what happened. So this moment is when you're giving them the chance to do so, right?
Yes.
The idea of the ideal post activity is one which is productive, either writing or speaking or both, depending on how creative you are. And it's an activity that students cannot do without having read the text or listened to the audio or watched the video. This is the
And understood
ideal post activity. Yes, of course. Right. Yes. Right. So I think this is the ideal activity. So
Yes.
for young learners, for example, if they read a story, they can create a comic strip summarizing the story. They can create a new cover, a new ending for the story. For teenagers, you can get them to, I don't know, maybe draw a poster, make a poster about the main ideas or the call for action. If it's an interview with an astronaut, for adult learners, maybe they can continue the interview in a role play activity in which one of them
That
is
would
a
be great.
reporter and the astronaut, right? And then they carry
Oh,
on the interview. Would be
that
fun.
was very Celta-like.
Yeah,
That was
it
very
would be
Celta-like.
interesting.
Yeah, that would be a very good idea for the end of a lesson. And you would end the lesson in a very well, in a way that is the lesson is kind of remarkable to the student. It's memorable.
Mm,
They won't forget that.
yeah,
That would probably be a lot of fun as well.
yeah.
One thing that I was gonna add is that if it's a post reading or a post listening, the student has to the task, the questions, whatever you're going to use has to be related to the text, the topic,
Mm,
and it must involve them giving their own opinions. So they must personalize what is in there,
mhm.
right? I'm,
Yes,
I'm even going to write
definitely.
that.
Yeah, this is big. Yeah, it's personalizing
Hmm.
the content of the text, right? Listener.
Very
Uh,
nice.
definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Walter, we have a situation.
Mm,
I think we're gonna have an extra class for this course so that we
mm.
can deliver the next framework
The
because
next framework.
yeah, because we have explored this in very good depth,
Yeah.
I must say. uh I think we're going to need one extra class in this course to talk about a framework for writing next week. What do you
Yes.
think?
Yeah. I think it's a good
Yeah,
idea.
yeah,
Works.
yeah.
Yes.
So we can have this kind of depth for writing as well.
Sounds
Yeah.
great. Sounds
Right.
great. Yeah.
So can we summarize everything and wrap up? What do you think?
Sure.
Yeah.
Good.
As I was speaking, for most of
Mm.
this, and next class it's on you. What are the takeaways here about it? What do you think?
Okay. So the first thing I would say is that do remember that you're gonna have three stages. One that is before you listen or read the text, one that happens during the listening or reading, and one that happens after the reading or listening. All right. So pre, while, post listening or reading, it works for both of them. Uh, in the pre, you probably want to give them something communicative. They will talk about, they will discuss, and they will activate the vocabulary related to the text they will read. So usually something communicative and or something that it's gonna explore the text somehow. You move on into while. Let's break it down and narrow it, right? So the first part, you want them to read or listen and understand the general idea. So you may want to ask them something that requires them the understanding of the whole text. And then the second part, you will actually ask something more specific, something more detailed. They will listen or read again, but they need to understand little pieces of information. right? It's actually very possible that a student would read or listen to something for specific information as a first task, get the answers, and not actually understand the text because they didn't do the gist first. So do remember the order: gist, general understanding. If they don't get the gist that time, you have to figure something out and come up with another gist exercise. They need to understand the whole idea before moving on into little details or specific information. Afterwards, you move on to the post listening or reading. And in this time, they will use what the information from the text to talk about it, but they must personalize, they must include their own opinions. Yeah, I think that would be a summary of it. Yes.
Perfect wrap. I think so. I have nothing to add. Yes.
Really?
Mhm.
All right, all right, all
Yes,
right.
it was
Bruno, do you
very
think we have a
thorough.
wrap?
I think it's a wrap, Walter. And we're gonna have again a 7-lesson course.
We are always planning 6 lesson courses, and
Yes.
then today one ends
Yeah.
up being a 7-lesson
Yeah.
course, but it's all right.
Um,
We
yeah,
really
funny
appreciate.
thing. Just one
Sure.
thing. Funny thing, timing has always been an issue for me. It's been an issue before Celta, during Celta, after Celta, before Delta, during Delta, and I think, well, it's gonna be an issue forever.
Yes, yes, it is for me too. I sympathize. Well, as usual, please smash that like button. Give us a comment. We really want to know your ideas about this content. What are your favorite types of gist exercises or details exercise? Bruno mentioned that he doesn't like true or false. Do you like those? Let us know. Comment down below. We are going to answer your questions, your comments, and we really appreciate them. And please share the video with other teachers if you can. We really appreciate. Subscribe to the channel if you're not, if you haven't yet. And that'll be it for today.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Walter, for the partnership.
Thank you,
And
Bruno.
we'll see you, everybody, next week for more ELT in Brazil, the best ELT channel in the world.
Thank you, guys. See you next.